All right, guys, I just unmuted. Can you let me know if you can hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, guys, I just unmuted. Can you let me know if you can hear me? Okay. Now it's like an echo. All right. Sorry, this is new for me too. So we'll work through it together. I'm going to wait for just a minute or two more, see if anyone else joins us. If not, it'll be a little private session with just us, and you can ask all the questions you want. All right, got a few more people joining us. Yay. I'm excited that this is kind of working. Hopefully this will be better than just having to watch a video on your own. All right. It is 8:01, so we are going to get started. So like I said on this little screen, if you could please have your rubrics, clarification document, possibly a writing utensil and some scrap paper, because we are going to go through a couple examples that you may want to script with us. Some people really like to write any notes right on their rubrics or their clarification document, which is perfectly fine. Or if you'd rather have them on a separate piece of paper, that's up to you. So without further ado, we're going to start with just some general notes and guidelines, and most of these come directly from our wonderful judges coordinator, Angie Feely, and she has some requests as she's putting together the panels and, trying to coordinate all of that. So I'm Carrie Gansky, by the way, for those of you that don't know me. And I'll show you my face later maybe, but for right now, we'll just do the PowerPoint here. Yeah, so let's get started. I am the 1A, 2A state director, so you'll probably see me around, especially at semifinals and finals. I help Michelle Dean work together to do this, and then I'm part of the committee that created these rubrics and the clarification document. So that's who I am. Here's some contact information. I'm not really sure why you, as a judge, you might need mine, but there it is just in case. I do live out in the boonies, so please text only because I can't really get phone calls. I have two email addresses. You're welcome to use either one. The first one is a school account, so nothing inappropriate. And then the second one is my personal email. Angie Feely is the judges coordinator. You will be hearing from her most often. She's the one that's sending all the schedules and telling you which competitions you are assigned to. If she puts out an email that says judge needed for a certain date or a certain position, so if she says I need a safety judge for October 14th, or I need I need a jump and tumble judge for October 14th. You only have to reply to her if you are available. And if she emails you back and says it's yours, then it's yours. And then she'll send out a separate email to everybody else that says judge found. So if you didn't get the it's yours email, you didn't get it. Okay, so a different judge was found. So she's just trying to declutter her inbox a little bit with unnecessary emails. So if you are not available for that date or you do not want to do that position, don't email her back at all. She only wants to hear from you if you want the job. Same thing too, she does a lot of stuff from her phone. So her emails are often short and sweet, and it has nothing to do with how she feels about you. It just has to do with time constraints. So sometimes you'll just get an okay or a smiley face, and that's normal. All right, Greg Collins is our rules interpreter, and he's kind of in charge of all the judges together. So there's his cell phone and his email, especially if you have safety questions or you can't get a hold of Angie or I, you can contact him. He is available to talk as well. Anytime you have questions, feel free to just drop them in the chat, and I should be able to see them. I think you guys are a couple seconds behind me though, so there's like a delay just in case I say something naughty, I guess. But, you know, I'll try to get to them as timely as possible. All right, so contacts. Our judging panel, for those of you that may be new, I don't know, are any of you new? 6 judges. We have 1 head judge, 3 panel judge, 2 safety and deductions judges. Our head judge is also our scripter. They do not actually fill out a score sheet. They just script the entire routine. They check the rubric ranges. They lead the panel. So they're kind of like a second scripter or a second person to watch the floor for you. So you can always check your, what you scripted with them. So did they really have, 3 groups doing such and such or whatever? You can check with your head judge, the extra person. Category judging is execution and difficulty, both. So you're using the rubric and you're also judging for execution and technique. Oh, good, we have a couple new people. Hi. This is going to seem really daunting, but it's much less scary than it seems, I promise. So our category judges, we have 1 person that just looks at stunts and pyramids, 1 person that looks at tumbling and jumps, and then a 3rd person that does overall, cheer, toss, and dance. So these little webinars are going to be per category. So tonight, after we get through this general notes, we're going to talk about jumps and tumble. And that's just 1 judge doing that. So even though you're learning it all at once, you'll only ever be doing 1 job at a time at a competition. And then we have 2 safety judges, or legality officials, I think is the PC way to say that now. And they look for rules violations per the NFHS Spirit rules book. And they also check for falls and bobbles. And again, they are part of the team. So even though they're kind of walking around the mat or sitting up front and they're looking specifically for safety stuff, they can also help with like, hey, did that girl back there actually hit her back handspring, or did she fall out of her tuck? Like they can kind of help with that as well. All right, we are a team, like I just said, so we're all working together. It's not one person against another person. If you and your head judge cannot come to an agreement, it always goes towards the team. So if it's a long conversation that you're having and you're like, did they, didn't they, did they, we can't tell, let's try again, let's think through it, and it's going to be a long conversation, just give the team the benefit of the doubt and make a note of that on their score sheet. So especially if it's a rubric range issue, just make sure that you're saying like, today we counted this many, make it clear for next time or whatever, just so they know that it was kind of a conversation that you were having. But again, we are a team, so don't be afraid to split the mat. Sometimes we'll be, especially for tumbling, we'll say, okay, the head judge is going to watch the left side, the tumbling judge is going to watch the right side, and then you count just your side if that works for you guys as a team. Same thing with baskets, they happen so fast. So, splitting the mat or working as a team is often helpful. Logistics, Angie, please jump in. Feel free to add anything if I'm forgetting anything, but plan to arrive 45 minutes before the competition start time. If you're going to be late, contact the head judge. And Angie's really good about putting the head judge's contact information into the email that you'll receive once you get, assigned to that job. If you can't attend the competition that you're scheduled for, you need to contact Angie as soon as possible. If it's, a couple days out, you could do it via email. If it's within 24 to 48 hours, I would definitely send her both an email and a text. So, she definitely gets it, and we can find a replacement real quick. Obviously, keep your MPSSCC judging jobs off of social media. We don't really want to see someone being like, hey, I'm off to see Milton Wright to judge today, because it's all about perception. This kind of goes with that last bullet point too. Even if you don't have an affiliation for with any teams that are going to be at that event. Someone may perceive that you do. Obviously, once you're there, if you know people, that's one thing, but just don't put it out there, especially before competitions. All right. And don't use your phones at the judges table unless it's a very big emergency, because again, coaches are kind of crazy and they always want to make up some excuse for why they didn't win. So, oh, well, Sally Sue at the judges table was texting results to, this coach that we're competing against or whatever. They make up all kinds of stuff. So unless it's an emergency, just, kind of refrain from trying to use your phones during competitions. All right, let me see. It looked like there are maybe a couple questions. Give me 1 second. They go away on my phone, and now I don't know. Oh, here we go. Not new. Okay, perfect. Moving on. What to bring. So just like today, if you could bring rubric, score sheets, tracking sheets, clarification document with you. Technically, the competition director should have these there for you, but we've been to enough invitationals where the competition director, even though we send them everything ahead of time, really has no idea what they're doing, or they've printed them incorrectly, or they have like a version from 2 or 3 years ago. So if you have at least one copy with you, then you can either make copies at the school, because generally our competitions are at schools, or at least you have something to go off of. So please, 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 rubrics, at least one copy of the score sheets. Your head judge should have these as well. Tracking sheets we'll talk about, but those are so important. And then, like I said, the clarification document. Also good to bring extra paper and writing utensils. Again, sometimes they're provided. It was not guaranteed though. So extra paper is for actually scripting. We don't have necessarily like scripting sheets to give you. So if you bring extra paper, you can script on that. Food and drink is optional, obviously, but not all of the, not all of the competitions provide that. So you're an adult. If you get hungry or you need some water, bring it with you. And then I would suggest dressing in layers, or at least bringing layers. So sometimes we walk into a gym and it's like hatching baby hit chicks hot because it's so hot in there. And sometimes it's like freezing cold. So it's hard to tell on any given day or any given season what it's going to be like. Business casual, it doesn't have to be super dressy, but you are representing the MPSSCC, Maryland Public Schools State Cheerleading Committee. And you're also representing, the role of an official at a sporting event for high school. So no jeans, please. And also remember that you're around children. So just be mindful of, I don't want to say that. Never mind. Just be mindful. You're around children. And then safety judges, at least one of you don't wear spike heels, because you'll probably have to go on the mat at some point. And we don't want you poking holes in the mat with your heels. I know it kills me too, because I love spike heels. All right. Another thing we like to say, I'm just pausing for a moment to see if there's any questions, but I don't see any. So I'm going to keep pushing through. Vegas and Sweden equals the MPSSCC. So what does that mean? Vegas, what happens on the stand stays on the stand. No comments on social media. Don't discuss teams and scores with other coaches, judges, etc. Right? Even before or after. So sometimes we get to a competition, especially if there's new people on the panel, and let's say one of our like quote unquote dynasty teams is there, and you're like, oh my God, they were so good last year. Wait till you see them. It just kind of puts an idea in the head of the person, whether it's good or bad, for what to expect. And we want us all to have fresh eyes, but especially in this situation. And we're also perfectly neutral. So come in with a clear mind. Each competition is a new day, and let Angie know about any affiliations that you have, even if it's from like a couple years ago. So if your child or your sister went to a public school in Maryland and they cheered, then, that's something, just mention it. Sometimes it won't make a difference. Sometimes it might, depends on the competition. So just let her know. It's better to let us know of anything that might come up later than to have us find out later. And trust me, the cheer world in Maryland is small, so we definitely will hear about affiliations and comments. People are quick to be like, did you know that her sister's brother's dog walker's cousin was a cheerleader at Eastern Tech, and then that's why, they're on the panel and they're judging them? Trust me, it comes up. So just let us know. And Harford County does not provide food. Did y'all see that? Definitely bring stuff to Harford County. Okay. Tracking sheets are very, very important. There should have been some copies of these in the big packet of information that Angie emailed out, I believe either earlier today or yesterday. Please, you have to use these. And these are something that you may want to just copy a bunch of or print a bunch out and bring with you, because of all the things, invitationals especially tend to forget to provide tracking sheets. It's basically just a Excel spreadsheet with columns and rows, and they just for you to write down like the score that you give them, so you can compare what you gave one team to what you gave the other team. So our expectation is that you judge or score on the sheet first, write the score that you want to give on your tracking sheet next to the other scores that you've already given, and then transfer that to the score sheet afterward. It cuts down on mistakes, and it also helps you compare teams better. And then, of course, you can also make shorthand notes on the tracking sheet to remind you of what you're doing. I'm going to see if I can pull up. I don't know if I have a copy of this ready. I'll see if I can find one for next time to show you what that looks like, in case you are unsure. So just overall, as far as points go, we'll talk more about tracking sheets too as we get into each category as well. All right, so points, rubrics for stunts, pyramids, jumps, tumbling, and tosses. So you must get the teams in the right ranges. That's the main thing. Once you're in the correct range, then you have some wiggle room as far as subjectivity goes, where you're going to put them in that range. And that's where comparative scoring comes in. But it is so important. And for jumps and tumbling this season, jumps and tosses this season are not ranges. They're just a flat score. So we kind of have to get that right, because it's going to be super important. You can use tenths of points when you're judging, and please use them wisely. Okay, utilize the entire point spread. So if it's a 9 to 10 range, you can use all of those tenths of points in there. So even though it's a 1-point spread, it's actually 10 different points you can give in there. It's very important. Teams can get a perfect score or even the same score. Don't be afraid of that 10. If you see something that you think, I don't know what else they can do, give them the 10 or give them the top of the range score that they deserve. You cannot go below a 5.0 in technique and execution. This is new this year. We were having issues with this last year, but it was kind of a recommendation. This year, it's a blanket statement. Do not give below a 5.0. And that goes for technique, execution in any of the categories. It also goes for cheer, dance, and overall, those 3 categories. If you give a 5, it's like giving a 0. Okay, that means that they really didn't do a whole lot. All right, so keep that in mind. Technique, execution, cheer, dance, overall. 5 equals 0, cannot go below a 5. And just keep in mind too that you don't have to kill teams or like hurt their little hearts in order to place them correctly. So I'm a teacher. I know a lot of us are teachers, or we have kids that have teachers. So try to think like a teacher, or at least in terms of math. If you think about a 6 out of 10, that's a 60%. It's like getting a D on a assignment. Okay, 7 out of 10 is a 70, 8 out of 10 is an 80 or a B. So kind of think about that way. Was that a B routine? Was it an A routine? Did they do more than what you expected them to do? Or was it just like they fell all over themselves, right? So really keep that in mind. And then, of course, we always judge based on majority. So if one stunt falls out of 5 stunt groups, we're not going to take off major execution points. They're already getting hit on our fall and bobble score sheet. So, we don't have to take off major points in execution as well, especially if it's only 1 out of 5. So we definitely want to judge based on majority. Any questions about that? I'm just going to give some wait time. Like I said, I was a teacher. All right, I'm going to move on. If I see any more come through, I'll circle back. Okay, so comments, super important as well. Comments must match your scores. So don't give them a 7.0 and then tell them, great job, amazing energy. They're going to be like, what are you talking about? That's a C. If I had amazing energy, why am I getting a C, right? Be constructive, but don't choreograph for them. So one thing that I like to remind folks is that if they had the skill, they would have put it in already. So for example, and we're going to go through some specific comments for each category. And then I believe Angie also provided a comment sheet for you in that packet that she emailed out. So if they had the skill, they would have put it in. So don't say something like include 3 more back handsprings to meet range. If they had 3 more back handsprings, you would have seen 3 more back handsprings, right? The only time that is maybe untrue is jumps, because all high school cheerleaders should be able to jump. So if they didn't read the jump rubric correctly and they're not getting that 10 in jumps, you can make a comment about that, but that's the only category. Everything else, don't choreograph for them. Judge or comment on what you see only. And we're going to talk about this more when we get to tumbling and jump approach and landing. Some coaches have very specific ways that they teach their team to land or to prep. And we can't comment on that. If the whole team is doing it, that's just their style. But we can comment on the other parts of that or the synchronicity of that. And again, that'll make more sense in just a minute. Our invitationals are our preparatory competitions. So we do want to see lots of comments at those competitions. Once we get into counties, and then of course with semis and finals, it's going to be less and less comments and more like circling on the score sheets. Specific, if there's time, specific is better than vague. So if possible, and again, it kind of comes down to time, tell them where on the floor or where in the routine you noticed what you're commenting on. So back right stunt group, stand closer together, or front left corner tumbling, squeeze legs, something like that. Okay, don't just say good job on jumps or fixed flexibility. That's a little too vague. You want to tell them exactly what they're doing right, what you liked, and then of course what specifically you might need to fix. Or if they need to fix flexibility, it may not be the whole entire team. It may just be one section of the team or one group of kids. So just try to be mindful of that. We also sometimes, I like to draw the formation. I'll make little X's if they're like in a stunt formation, and then circle the one I'm talking about, so there's no confusion. But again, as we go through, especially for you newbies, you'll get the hang of this, and you can see what other people do and kind of get a feel for how to do that. All of our rubrics are based on numbers. Again, this is a change from last year. For stunts and pyramids and basket tosses, we got rid of the majority of expected number of groups category. We've been living with that for about 2 years. We thought that it's time to move away from that. And so now we're just doing this expected number of groups, which I think is going to be clearer for our coaches and also for our judges too. So this is it. If you have 25 members, we want to see 5 groups. If you have 20 to 24, we need to see 4 groups, etc. The quantity charts haven't changed. These quantity charts are for the individual skills like jumps and tumbling, which we'll talk about today. Sometimes you need 50% in tumbling. You can use the 75% for tumbling, and then for jumps, we're looking just at 75%. All right, each of these are on the bottom of every single rubric. Please do not feel like you need to memorize this. I don't have it memorized. I don't work in numbers. I'm an English teacher, so I constantly have to refer back to this and look at it. I think the only one I have memorized is 20, just because it's 10, 15, 20, and that's how I remember that. Okay. Here's our new pay scale. Angie, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this is the newest one. 0 to 9 teams is $80. If there's 10 to 16 teams, it's $100. 17 to 22 teams is $120. If they have 23 or more teams, we are requiring them to have a double panel, and you get paid $100. And the reason for that is because the double panel, you're actually there less time. So, and you're judging less teams, because if there's 23 plus teams, you'll only be judging half of those, and it's only $100. And then any MPSSCC sponsored events, such as semifinals or finals, those are $200 because they're more prestigious, and honestly, we have more money, and you get paid per division. So for example, if you look at Montgomery County, when Angie sent that email, it was like 3 separate times. So you get paid separately for each one of those separate times, even though it's all at one day. I believe most of their divisions are in the 0 to 9 range. One of the divisions might be at 10 range. So you're looking at either $80 3 times or like 80, 80, 100 if you do that competition, because you're there all day, so you deserve to be compensated. All right. You guys are kind of quiet, so I'm hoping that there's no questions, or hopefully maybe I hope I'm not just missing it all. All right. Moving right along. This is kind of the last slide, I think, for this. So any resources that may help you if you need to look at any resources, cheerrules.org. That's specifically for what is legal and illegal. MarylandCheerCoaches.org should have all of the rubrics and clarification sheet and scoring system on there, and all the competition dates and times. NFHS.org if you want to order a rule book. That link is correct. I am going to send that out after this, after this webinar. And that link, so you can just click on it. You don't have to like memorize it or whatever. That link will have all of the videos there that I'm using in the training today as well. It is just for judges, so please don't share it with coaches. That has happened in the past, and it's just not, it's unethical. We obviously, it's nothing in here is like a secret, but if we're being fair and honest in our training, anyway, just don't share it with anybody but judges. Okay. All right. Here's our contact information again in case you need it. And give me 1 second while I switch over to jumps and tumbling. Is there any questions on any of that general stuff? Angie, did I miss anything? Oh, there we go. Questions. Oh, just a clarification. Safety judges get 120 for double panels because they're judging every team. That's exactly right. I'll add that. And judges.maryland@gmail. And I think that was that on here? Let me go back a slide. Yes. So any questions that you have as you're kind of processing this later, you can send directly to that email and Angie will get that. All right, let me switch over to jumps and tumbling then. Hi, everybody. Good to see you. All right, give me 1 second. This is a new system for me, so I'm trying to figure out how to share. Stop sharing. Sorry, it'll be much more smooth next time, I swear. Share screen. Here we go. All right, jumps and tumbling. So if you have your rubrics out and your clarification document, we can just get rolling right along here. There are no changes. Let me repeat, no changes to jumps and tumbling from last year beyond the fact that you cannot score below a 5 in execution and technique. So sorry, newbies, I'm going to go a little bit fast in this, but you can always go back and re-watch this later if you need to remind yourself of anything. And I am telling you 100% that shadowing and watching other people and doing it live with other judges is 100% the best way to learn how to do this. So I'm not letting you off to dry, I promise. All right, so if we're looking at the score sheet, if you're the jumps and tumble judge, you're in charge of both of these sections. So you're just watching the routine, looking for jumps or tumbling. So on our score sheet, the total score sheet is out of 130 points. Jumps by itself is 20 points. So you get 10 points for degree of difficulty and 10 points for technique and execution. Tumbling is also out of 20 points. So that's, again, 10 for degree of difficulty from the rubric and 10 for technique and execution. Overall, that's 40 points out of 130, which is about 31% of the entire score, which makes sense, right? We have 3 category judges, so they're about a third each. Here's that same chart that I showed you. It's, again, the same one that is on every single rubric for jumps and tumbling. So you do not need to memorize this. Don't waste your time memorizing it because you have it right there in front of you every single time. So jumps, degree of difficulty is super simple. It is not a range. It is just a flat score. They get a 10, they get a 9, they get an 8, they get a 7, that's it. I don't care if they do 100 jumps. They're only getting that 1 score. There's no way to increase within the range because it's not a range. So hopefully 99% of our teams get a 10 because we've been, again, kind of living with this rubric for 2 years now. They kind of get it. And again, this is the only one where you could make a comment about possibly connecting jumps or adding jumps because all high school cheerleaders should be able to jump unless they're injured. All right, so just looking at the top, just make sure that you are also kind of looking at the little notes at the top. So they're going to give you some information about how what we consider and some definitions and stuff. So sequence is elements performed at the same time in the routine. They can be performed in a ripple, but as soon as they move away and do something else, then that sequence is over, right? They've moved from jumps to tumbling, or they moved from jumps to dance or something like that. Connected, when we use that word in our rubric, it means no approach between the jumps. So like a whip approach, kind of like a double toe, where they're just using the rebound from the first jump to create the second jump. Variety, our definition of variety is at least 2 different jumps within the sequence. That's it. They just have to do 2 different ones. So if you look at, to get a 10, they have to do 4 jumps total. It could be 3 toe touches and a pike. And that counts as variety, just 2 different jumps. And then a couple notes, tuck jump, double hook or tabletop and spread eagle are not considered advanced jumps. Let's be honest, sometimes their toe touches look like spread eagles. So what we like to do is look at their knees. Are their knees attempting to turn out? Are they facing the back? Are their laces facing up or back? Then that is an attempt at a toe touch, and we're going to give them credit for that. If their knees and their laces of their shoes are facing forward and there's no attempt for turnout, then that is a spread eagle or X out, and they're not getting credit for that. And again, we're looking at the majority of the group. And again, these are not ranges. I cannot repeat that enough. So there you go. We're going to look at some examples of this in just a second. This is the clarification document. I'm not going to read this whole thing to you because you are intelligent human beings, but I'm going to point out a couple things. So this is on page 1 at the bottom of your clarification document. It's Roman numeral 3. So if you look down to C, the lowest score awarded will be a 2.5 for degree of difficulty. On the rubric, that is less than 75% of the team members perform jumps. So even if just one little girl is in front of the pyramid and she does a toe touch, she gets the 2.5. Good job, Sally Sue. The only time there would be a 0 awarded is if nobody in the entire routine does any jumps. So even if Sally Sue from the pyramid does a little tuck jump, she still gets a 2.5. It doesn't have to be advanced. All right. D, variety, like I said, at least 2 different jumps throughout the sequence. So there are a couple examples there for you. Obviously, they only need 75% of the team doing the jumps. Most people have 100%. Some people, put their bad ones in the back, taking a knee, but more often than not, we see the whole team doing it. But like a pike double toe, all is a whip approach, and then they reapproach to a pike. That's a 10. 100% of the team performs a right side hurdler, a toe touch, a left side hurdler, and another toe touch, all using a whip approach. That's a 10. They could do a triple toe, reapproach, pike, and that's a 10 as well. So as long as they have 3 connected and 1 extra, or 4 connected, then they get that 10. The 4th jump, and this is E, does not have to be connected to the previous 3. So sometimes we'll see them connect it to tumbling. So they'll do like toe touch back handsprings or toe touch tucks, and then they'll do their triple toe somewhere else or their triple jump somewhere else. If they are connected to tumbling, it's going to count as a jump, but it could also increase the score within the tumbling range. So obviously a toe touch back handspring or a toe touch tuck is a little harder than just a straight standing tuck. So you can factor that into tumbling as well. Any questions on this so far? Just going to give a little wait time. Okay. Jumps probably one of our easiest categories to judge. They're pretty straightforward. All right, so for technique and execution, because you're in charge of both, we want to judge from the beginning to the end of the skill. So you want to look at the approach. Are they using their arms appropriately? Are they keeping their chests up, if that's what they're all supposed to be doing? Are they synchronized? You want to obviously look at the actual jump, the height, the synchronization, the timing, their arms, legs, and chest placement. Are their toes pointed? Are they squeezing their core? That kind of stuff. And then obviously the landing. Are they landing with feet together if that's how they're taught, or are they all landing with feet apart? Whatever the case is, whatever their coach has choreographed, are they landing all the same, basically? Consider timing, spacing, synchronization, and height. And again, comment on what you see. I'm going to show you an example of what I mean in just a second. Watch the whole floor, not just the front or the back. Sometimes they like to hide each other, and sometimes, or hide their bad folks, right? And sometimes if we watch just, the girl in the front that has the super hyper extended jumps, then we forget that they are hiding their bad folk in the back, right? All right. And again, just remember, we cannot score below a 5 for technique and execution. Now for the rubric ranges, you absolutely can. They get what they get. So if they get that 2.5, they get that 2.5. You cannot go below a 5 for technique and execution, okay? And a 5 is like a 0. So if they have average jumps, they should be at least a 7.5 or above, okay? Here's just some examples of some comments. And again, I believe Angie sent out that comments sheet in the zip drive she sent earlier. So please just kind of look at that. But we really want to focus on how can you help them? They want to know, what can we do to increase our score? So if you're giving them constructive comments, then they know what they need to work on. Okay, so timing in the triple jump sequence. That's more specific than just saying, work on jump timing. Like jump timing where? The first jump, the second set of jumps? When do I need that? Snap legs together, connect 3 jumps to increase difficulty score, or add a 4th jump to increase difficulty score. So these are the 2 comments I was talking about. Usually we don't choreograph for teams, but for jumps you can add that. You can put that in there, because let's be honest, everyone should be getting a 10 in difficulty at this point. Okie doke. Again, if you want to pause this, take a picture, save it in your phone or whatever for future reference, or add it to the comment sheet that Angie sent you, feel free. Don't pause it now, pause it later. Okay, so let's practice, shall we? I don't know how clear these videos are going to come through. So bear with me, because again, this is kind of the first time I'm trying this. Oh, stop. Hold on. Sorry, I know you're still seeing the screen. Let me pull this up first. So again, all of these, here we go. All of these, Hi again. All of the videos that I'm going to use for these examples will be in the link that I'll send later. There has to be an easier way to do this. I'm going to figure it out for next time, I swear. Here we go, because jumping between screens is kind of funny. Okay. How does this look? Do you want me to make it full screen? Yeah. I'll make it full screen and see. So this is just a jump sequence. That's it. So I want us to just kind of practice scripting if you can, and then figure out which score they should get. So I have already counted them for you. You're welcome. There are 7 athletes. So we need 5 of them to jump for 75%. They all jump. Okay, here we go. Ready? Oh no, this is being really, really slow. I guess YouTube doesn't want me to use their YouTube videos. This worked perfectly when I did this earlier, I swear. Grr. Let's try it one more time. I practiced this like with my husband, and he said he could see them fine. And now, of course, when we're actually doing judging, it's not working. All right, try it one more time. There you go. It's a little better. All right, not great, but it's a little, I don't know, glitchy. But again, you can always go back and watch it later. So what did we script? What did they do? This is the interaction portion of the video. Can anyone tell? No one's answering. Okay, so they did a toe touch. They did a hurdler, a front hurdler sort of, and then they did a pike. Yes, Shannon, 3 jumps, but were they connected or not? Toe touch, front hurdlerish, and a 3rd jump. That's exactly right. Front hurdlerish. Not connected, right? So if we look at our rubric, we're looking for 3 advanced jumps because the toe touch, we give them the credit, even though it's the execution is not that great. Even, trust me, even without the glitching, it's not that great. So we're looking for 3 advanced jumps that are not connected. So what score would that be? Woohoo! You all win the prize. It is a 7. Awesome. You're all hired to judge jumps. Yes, they get the 7. So toe, reset, hurdler, reset, pike. The other thing I really wish that you guys could see is the way that they land these jumps. They all land with their chests down. See right there? Oops. See right there where all their chests were down? Did you see that? Just a second. That is a choreographer's choice. So the choreographer is choosing to have them land with their chests down. That is not their fault. The whole team is doing it. So all we can do is just judge what we see. So if they're all supposed to land with their heads and chests down, then they're all supposed to land with their head and chest down. And that's not something that we can correct for them. And sometimes we'll see like the Peter Pan pose at the end too. Y'all know what I'm talking about, where they like land feet together and then jump out with their hands on their hips, all akimbo, like my little teapot. That also we can't really say, don't do that necessarily because that's how they were taught. But if it's supposed to be that way and someone's not doing it that way, you can definitely comment on that. All right, we're going to try this again. It's really frustrating to me that it's not working, and I'm so sorry. But what are you going to do? So this is another jump sequence. There are 8 kids. So looking at our little quantity chart at the bottom, if you have 8 kids, that means 6 of them need to jump in order to be 75%. Again, every kid in this video does jump. Excuse me. And then, well, let me see what happens. Come on, video. Oh, this one's a little better. All right. Did you get it? It's that quack. It's that fast when we're doing it live too. So you got to come up with some like little shorthand. I usually just use the first letter of the type of jump. So if it's a toe touch, I'll write a T. If it's a hurdler, I'll write an H. The only time that comes back to bite me is because if we count a front hurdler and a side hurdler as separate, like that would count as variety. So sometimes you have to go back and decide, was it a front hurdler and a side hurdler? Toe touch, side hurdler, pike. Yep, you guys got it. And are they connected or not connected? And again, this is another one where you may need to come up with a little shorthand so you can remind yourself at the end whether it's connected or not. I'm gonna see if I can, I don't know if this is gonna show up or not, if I can show you my, sorry, can you guys see that? I can't tell. So what I like to do is I'll write like for this one over here, the T is the first jump they did, then they reapproach. So I put a little line letting me know that it's not connected, and then THP, toe touch, hurdler, pike, and they are connected there then. See what I mean? So just kind of come up with like a little shorthand to help you remember whether they're connected or not. All right, so because they had 1 not connected and 3 connected, good, so Aaron uses a comma, perfect. 1 jump, break, then 3 connected. 1 separate, the other connected, you guys got it. So that would be what, a 10, right? Because they have variety. They have 3 advanced connected jumps plus 1 additional jump. So this would count as a 10. I'm gonna go back to full screen here. Yeah, baby. Oh, there you go. Bye. What about technique and execution? Did you guys write anything down about that? And I know the video is not great, but what would we say about technique and execution? Overall, I think their height was pretty good. The timing was off in that second jump, and actually, or the second set of jumps, if you watch, it's really only, I think, this chick right here that's off, but just her being off makes everybody else look off. You know what I mean? Because she's a little faster, but the rest of the team is sort of on time together. It's not great, but it's not bad either. Really quick, this is also a 10. I just wanted to show you, if it works, an example of how they put 3 together and then they put 1 separate. So here's this whole big team. This is an all-star team. So they're going to do a triple jump here, hurdle, toe, toe, and then they're going to break. And the judge is like, oh my gosh, they only did 3 jumps. Why did they only do 3 jumps? That's crazy. They're only going to get a 9. Don't write that 9 on your score sheet yet, because like I said, a lot of, especially our advanced teams, will then add a jump later right before they tumble. Okay, so coming up, we're just going to fast forward here a little bit. Here they are again. There's their fourth jump right before their tumble pass. All right, so they did 3 at the beginning with their triple jump. They moved sequences. They went to stunts. And then right before their tumbling, they do another jump. So don't automatically think that they're going to get that 9. They may throw that extra jump in somewhere else. Sometimes it's the very beginning. Sometimes, like I said, most of our advanced teams do it right before their tumble pass. And even if they do, again, like 1,000 jumps, they only get a score for how many they connect together, and they get that flat score. All right. Questions about jumps overall. I want to keep going, and we are going to skip to tumbling. If the tumbling videos aren't working, I will do a separate video of just me talking without comments. Sorry, if it's not working, to kind of show you through that, because it's so frustrating that it's kind of being silly. All right. Hi again. Give me 1 second. I'm going to go back to sharing this other screen. So we're going to talk about tumbling. Here we go. Tumbling. Talk about technique and execution first, just because it's kind of straightforward. It pretty much matches what we're doing for jumps. Again, you want to judge and comment from the beginning to the end of the sequence and pass. So again, you're looking at the approach, the skill, and the landing. So are they setting up for their tucks? They're pulling their arms up by their ears, and they're tucking up instead of like throwing their head back. Are they, reaching forward through their walkovers and cartwheels? And then obviously looking at the actual skill, and then how are they landing that skill? Are they popping their chests up, snapping their chests up, using their arms to help them land in a standing position, etc. So again, looking at arms, legs, shoulders, feet, and head, all that kind of good stuff. And again, scores based on the technique of the majority. So sometimes we have a couple little folks that are just throwing their kind of janky back handsprings, and just to get their numbers up. If it's 1 or 2, God bless their hearts. But if it's the majority of the team having the same problem, then obviously you can start taking off for technique. Don't forget, you cannot go below a 5. Again, and a 5 is like everybody ate mat. It's basically like giving them a 0. So just keep that in mind. It's not really a 50% anymore. It's a 0. So if more than 3 people land their stuff, don't give a 5. All right. Remember, these are individuals, so many don't have access to tumble coaches or classes, so we want to be kind. This is also why we don't, kind but reasonable, all right? But we don't want to, this is why we don't separate running and standing tumbling in high school cheer, because tumbling is something that many of our coaches don't feel confident teaching on their own. It has a high risk for injury that way. And many of our schools are from areas that don't have the monetary means to go to tumbling classes. So you kind of get what you get. Don't be afraid to reward good technique for lower level skills. We say this all the time, and I still hardly ever see it. If they have perfect forward rolls, feet and ankles together, knees together, their synchronization is perfect, they can get a 10 on technique and execution. Technique and execution has nothing to do with the actual skill. It just has to do with how they're performing what they're performing. And this goes for all of the categories, but specifically for tumbling. If they have crappy back handsprings, everyone's kind of doing head springs, they're landing almost on their knees, they're not snapping those chests up, then they can get a low technique and execution score. All right, so again, let me say that one more time. For those in back, perfect forward rolls can get a high technique and execution score. Really good front walkovers can get a perfect score. And I'm going to show you an example of that, hopefully, if it works in a little bit. Also, in technique and execution, consider their timing, their synchronized passes, their spacing, and their pace. Okay, if there's almost collisions on the floor, that's important. That's part of execution. Is their pace really, really slow? That's like the slowest back handsprings you've ever seen in your life. That's important. That's part of execution as well. And again, we're basing that on majority, so the majority of the team. Here are some more comments, especially if you're not really used to judging tumbling or commenting on how to do tumbling correctly. I would take a couple minutes to read through these and read through the ones that Angie sent. Talk with someone who you know has a lot of tumbling technique practice, and get them to tell you, like, how do you teach a back tuck, or how do you teach a front walkover, and what are you looking for that? And again, we're trying to be specific as time allows. Tumbling degree of difficulty, we actually switched this last year. We had really good luck with this last year. I don't think, Angie, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure we did not get one real complaint about tumbling being out of rubric range because of the way that we switched it. Coaches aren't 100% happy with the switch, but too bad, so sad. We are super happy as judges because it has made it so much easier to count and to put them in the correct range. So again, this is per the rubric. Work together with your head judge to make sure you're counting correctly. Tumbling is not cumulative. We don't count recyclers. This is different than the all-star world. So if you're coming to us from all-star, we do not count recyclers. It is not like from beginning to end, you just add them all up. We have to count individual tumblers. You can meet the requirement in either standing or running. So they can do a sync pass for running, or they can do their sync pass standing. Either one will count. Again, we don't separate standing and running. And like I said earlier, when in doubt, the benefit goes to the team. If you really can't decide, and especially if you're one athlete off and you're like, I'm pretty sure they had it, but I'm not sure, just make a comment of that on the degree of difficulty sheet when you're putting the score down, to let them know, like, hey, we think we counted 10. We're not sure. Be sure that your choreography is clear, or whatever the case is, or like, you got away with it today, but don't expect to get away with it next time, or whatever you want to say. All right. All right, so let's look at the rubric. Again, these are ranges this time. So whatever is listed on this sheet gets them into the range. So for example, if you look at that 9 to 10 range, it says 75% of team members perform back tucks. And again, that could be standing or in a running pass, that are synchronized from the initiation of the pass. If that is the only tumbling they do in the entire routine, they open their routine with 75% of them doing back tucks, and that's it, they get a flat 9. That is what they need to get into the range. All right. Same thing with, sometimes we'll see this with our lower level teams at 5 to 6 range. If they just do one set of cartwheels or round-offs, they're just getting that 5. That's it. Anything else is going to help drive that range. All right, so when we use the word synchronized on this rubric, we're talking about athletes performing the same exact skill or combination of skills from the beginning to the end of the pass, regardless of whether the passes are rippled or not. So for example, 75% of athletes perform simultaneous back walk over back handsprings, while the other 25% take a knee in the back. If you look at your range sheet down below, that means that they are in that 7 to 8 range. Anything else they do, if they do running passes later, if they do another set of back handsprings, all of that stuff is just going to drive the range, but they're going to live in that 7 to 8 range, right? It has to be the exact same skill. They cannot do what I like to call pickup ripples, where, you know, the first row starts with the back handspring, and then the second row does a back handspring when the first row does their second back handspring. You know what I mean? So the first row is doing like 3 back handsprings, but the second row is only doing 2, and the last row only does 1. You know what I mean? That doesn't count. It has to be from the beginning to the end of the pass exactly the same. Again, tumbling is not counted cumulatively. And if other choreography, this is new this year, this is new. If other choreography or skills are performed during the required synchronized pass, then teams will automatically be awarded the 0.5 of the range below. We'll talk about that a little bit more when we get to the clarification document in just a second. Again, that 0 means no tumbling was performed at all throughout the entire routine. Nobody did a forward roll during the dance. Nobody did a little cartwheel in the back. Nobody did a front walkover into their stunt sequence. Nobody did anything. 0 tumbling. If one little peewee girl does a forward roll in the dance, she gets a 4.0. Okay, the only requirement for that 4 to 5 range is tumbling does not meet the requirements for the 5 to 6 range. So one little girl does her forward roll, she gets a 4.0. God bless her heart. Okay, moving on up. 5 to 6 range, 75% of the team has to do cartwheels or round-offs. Does this say front walkovers or back walkovers? And no, it does not. So we are looking specifically for cartwheels or round-offs. That's it. If they want to do walkovers later, that's great. But they have to do, 75% of them have to do a cartwheel or a round-off. Because these skills are similar, they can do a combination of them. You can tell whether they're doing a sideways facing kind of skill, or if they're putting both hands down at the same time, right? So cartwheels and round-offs is like hand, and then their feet, whereas every other skill is like both hands at the same time. So they can do cartwheels or round-offs together. But again, it has to be synchronized from the beginning. No other choreography should be performed during this time. Anything else they do, so if they do have some kids that can do back handsprings or back tucks and they throw those in later, again, that's going to be extra kind of icing on the cake that drives them up in the range, but they're still living in that 5 to 6 range. All right, 6 to 7 range, we're looking for 50% of the team to do back handsprings, again, standing or running. And again, that says back handsprings, not front handsprings, not head springs, back handsprings. Again, synchronized from the beginning, and no other choreography should be performed. So if they decide to do running back handsprings, they can do specialty into that running, right? Just the last skill has to be a back handspring, okay, or the main skill. So they could do like front walkover, round off back handspring, and that can be their pass. They could do round off back handspring. They could do cartwheel back handsprings, any combination of that. Just the last thing, or some part of that has to have a back handspring in it. Obviously, if they're just doing single back handspring standing, that's probably going to be that 6.0. If they're adding in the extra stuff, the front walkover, round off back handspring, that's harder. So that could help drive the range a little bit, and you could throw them a couple extra tenths points. That's going to depend on who else is at the competition and what they've thrown. So it's always comparative scoring. All right, 7 to 8, we're moving up to 75% back handsprings. 8 to 9, we're into back tucks. We need 50% back tucks. Again, standing or running. And then 9 to 10 is 75% back tucks. We do have several teams that will get into that 9 to 10 range. Most of our teams are living in the 7 to 9, 7 to 8, 8 to 9 range, which is fine. Good for them. And again, technique and execution is not tied to this rubric at all. So again, if they have perfect cartwheels, they can get that 10.0. If they have janky back tucks and they're all falling all over the place, they may get the 9 to 10 range for difficulty, but you can nail them on technique, but not below a 5. Okay. Really quick, let's go through the tumbling clarification document. Again, this is all the same from last year for those of you that were with us last year. That just the A, B, and C kind of just explain why we made the changes that we did. D kind of goes into some more detail about that synchronized pass. And again, it must be from the beginning of the sequence to the end of the sequence. So if 75% of the team is performing back handsprings, the other 25 cannot be involved in any other choreography, skill, or movement. They need to just stand there like a bump on a pickle. They can take a knee, they can stand there, they can hunch over, but they cannot really move. They can hold a pose. So if at the beginning they're all standing there like they have their hands out to the side and the other hand on their hip, and they're just standing there and they don't switch that position while the tumbling is happening, that's okay. We just want them to be still. Again, no fakers, no back walkovers during back handsprings, no jumping, no tosses, nothing. And the coaches were really kind of pushing back on this because they're like, well, that's boring. That's like wasted time. No, it's not, because we're watching your tumbling anyway. So your little stupid show and go in the back, we don't care about that. So just do the tumbling. It's like a second worth of time. They're getting over it. The thing in yellow there, teams that do not follow this requirement will be awarded the 0.5 of the range below. So we've been living with this rubric for a year. Some coaches take it upon themselves not to follow directions, and they still try to throw those fakers in there. And so we're going to punish them for it, because read the freaking rubric and get over yourself, right? So for example, a team of 20 performs running round off back tucks in a square formation for their sync pass. We saw this at least 3 times last year, this exact scenario. The back group of 5, does everyone know what I mean in a square formation? So the front right corner goes across the front to the left. That group that starts in the front left corner goes to the back corner. The group that's in the back corner goes across the back, you know what I mean? So they're going in a square. The back group of 5 performs round off back handsprings, not back tucks. So while the 15 do back tucks, that back group does back handsprings. And it's clear that they were not going to ever attempt a tuck. They are clearly not like saving the skill. They're just throwing their back handsprings. This team could potentially be in the 9 to 10 range, right? If they have 15 tucks, but they will be awarded an 8.5 since the requirements of the rubric cannot involve any other choreography were not met. All right, so instead of just not counting those skills at all, we compromised. This was a committee decision, and we voted on it. So the rubric committee voted on it. We decided it as a rubric committee, and then we took it to our state committee, and they agreed that this was going to be the change. So that's the deal. And I don't care if they throw 100 fulls after that, they still get the 8.5. I'm done messing around with that crap, or the committee is rather, not just me. All right. Again, that'll be kind of maybe a game time decision between you and your head judge about how to award that and if it's appropriate to award that. If a girl decides not to throw her tuck because of a safety issue or, you know, an injury thing, or they touch down afterwards, that's different. And honestly, I feel like 99% of the time, if you know anything about cheerleading, you can tell whether it was choreographed that way or whether it was a performance error. But again, that's why we're a team. So you talk to your head judge, talk to the other judges, see what they think before you make that decision. And again, please make a comment about it on their score sheet if you give that score. 75% of athletes that would, okay, so here are some examples that would get into the 9 to 10 range. Any of these scenarios are fine as long as it's synchronized, right, at the same time. And then examples that would not get into the 9 to 10 range are right there. Again, I'm not going to read them to you. You can read them on your own. This is more of a note for coaches. Only one pass needs to be synchronized and the same. So any additional passes can be choreographed however the coach see fit. So oftentimes, again, 9 times out of 10, we'll see them do their synchronized passes standing. And then they'll have cross pass running passes. And that's fine. They can do other things while they're doing their cross passes. They can have a whole pyramid in the back if they want to, but just that one pass needs to be synchronized. It does not have to come at the beginning of the routine either. So again, just like jumps, if you see them do something that seems like it maybe could be synchronized, but there's a couple kids doing something different, don't automatically think that they're out of range. Keep watching because they may have another synchronized pass later. All right, they're always trying to drive the range by adding in more things than they need. Okay, here's K. Everyone following along, I hope. Tumbling may be performed in a ripple. Let me just check. Okay. Tumbling may be performed in a ripple, but it must be absolutely capital, all capitals in bold, obvious that the individual athletes are performing the skills. So this is for safety. We do have some teams that have 25 team members, which is a lot of kids to try to tumble at the same time. So our example down here is that they can, especially if they're doing running skills, if that's how they want to meet their sync pass, they can do it in a ripple, but we need to be clear that they're not using recyclers. So for example, on a team of 20, if the athletes set up across the back of the mat in rows of 5, the first 5 tumble to the front, they do a round off back handspring back tuck, and then they either take a knee or they go off to the side and take a knee, and it's clear that they are done their tumble pass. Then the next 5 different folk come forward and they do the exact same skill, round off back handspring back tuck. It still has to be the same skill, whether they're doing it in a ripple or whether they're all doing it at the same time. Same skill. And then et cetera through however many they have. Sometimes we'll see them start like one from one side and the other and they cross that way. That's fine. The sync means same skill, basically. and it has to be clear. But we didn't really have, besides people trying to throw fakers in or trying to do like it was mainly the fakers. Like most coaches got this last year. They understood what we meant. So hopefully this being the second year, we won't see very many weirdness with that. All right. The other thing with synchronized passes is that if their timing is off, but they're still all doing the same skill, obviously timing goes towards technique and execution. They still get the benefit of the doubt for the degree of difficulty. So sync does not have to do with timing. It just has to do with what skills they're performing. So this is the first range. So things that could drive the range or increase in range. Obviously, if they have more skills than the minimum. So if they need 75% of the team doing back tucks and they have 100% of the team doing back tucks, which we will see, that is more than they need. And so they should be rewarded for that. They should get an extra 10th or 2. Synchronized skills are harder. So even if they're doing their cross passes, but they're sending 3 at the same time and they're actually synchronized and like together, sometimes they're not, that's harder than just sending one person at a time. So again, that should get a little bump. More passes than needed or specialty passes. So again, we were talking about that front walkover, round off back handspring. That's harder than just a single back handspring. So even though that is their requirement in the range, because they're adding that specialty to it right away, they should get a couple extra tenths there too, or a 10th extra. Transitional tumbling, even if it's a lower skill, if they're using front walkovers or forward rolls to transition, that's extra tumbling. It should be considered. Team participation, again, number of individual athletes completing the skills. So if they only need 75%, but they have 100%, and then later 5 or 6 of them also throw fulls, that's a big deal, right? I'd rather see more of the team doing a lower level skill than 1 or 2 like legit gymnasts like doing their full 100 times. I don't need to see Sally Sue do her full 100 times in your routine. Thank you anyway. And then obviously jump and tumble combinations. Poor Sally, why do we always pick on her? I don't know. Scripting and tracking, very important. I'm going to show you an example of how I script in just a second, but it is up to you to kind of come up with a shorthand that works for you. So important. Bring paper with you. Like I said, find a shorthand that works for you. Record all transitions and all skills, not just tally marks. So it's important if it's like a specialty pass or just a straight, again, front walkover, round off, back tuck is harder than just a round off, back tuck. So it's important to know that because it could make a difference in the tenths of points. And then again, especially once we get into like semifinals and finals and counties, that 10th of point could mean the difference between first and second place or advancing and not advancing. So it's important that you're specific in your tracking. We talked about judging from the tracking sheet first and then transferring to the score sheet compared to teams who are similar. So you don't have to go back and compare to every single team. If team number 1 only did front walkovers, but team number 2 did back handsprings, and then team number 3 did back handsprings, you really only need to compare teams 2 and 3, right? Because they're similar. Basically, teams that are within the same rubric range or teams that are similar in technique, so to try to place them correctly within your score. Teams can get the same score too. It's kind of a juggling act. One team does more fulls, but the other team has more specialty passes, maybe that kind of evens out. And so they can get the same score. We try to encourage you to use all the tenths of points, but if you're scoring, 15 teams and they're all in the same range, teams are going to get the same score. That's okay, as long as you can justify it. And then don't forget technique and execution as you're scripting. Angie said this once, and I think it's such a great advice, so I stole it. But again, you want to try to use shorthand. So I've taken to doing this too. So if it's like they look like this is just another Saturday in the park for them and it's easy and it's, it looks very breezy. I don't even know how to say it. Just write like easy peasy or write like, sometimes I'll write a check plus if I'm like, oh God, that's really great. Tee off is what I use for timing off and this is why we don't share this training with coaches, but you can use a shorthand for teams that are kind of not so great either, just to remind yourself. So those are some of the shorthands. If you don't know what that means, ask a friend. But again, shorthand for execution and technique too. Sometimes we get so caught up in how many and what did they do, we forget about how did they do it, but you are scoring that as well. So you need to kind of keep track of that. Here's my scripting sheet. Now, to be honest, this is not live. I kind of did this for you guys. So usually mine's like all sideways up the page and like not on an actual line. But in any case, so the first line there, this -7 tucks, okay, if they had however many people on their team and all of them did tucks except for 7. Sometimes in our upper level teams, it's easier to count who doesn't do the skill, especially now that they have to be still, than who actually does the skill. So -7 tucks, 5 of those were back handsprings. And then my double line here means that it's a new pass. This was their running tumbling pass. So they did 3 back handsprings and then 2 more went and then 3 more went. So I do like +2 did back handspring, +3 did back handsprings, and then 2 layouts and then 2 more did layouts, 3 tucks, +2, +1. So that's how I kind of do my running. I kind of, okay, if they sent 3 at a time and they're doing back handspring, if there's any specialty passes, sometimes I'll write a little S. Sometimes if it's like a punch front, I'll write PF for punch front. Usually if it's a specialty pass, it's like a front walkover through to whatever skill they're doing. And then they did some walkover transitions. They did team rolls in their dance. I know it looks like it says trolls, which sometimes that's true, but team rolls in their dance. So all of this stuff should be considered in their tumbling score. This means opening standing. That's all that means. So yeah, anyway, that's my shorthand. You can find a way that works for you best. Again, tumbling is not cumulative, okay? So even if they do like 3 back tucks in the beginning and then the same 3 girls do 3 back tucks later and then they do 3 back tucks at the end, that does not equal 9 back tucks. It's 3 and then 3 and then 3, okay? We need to see the sync pass all at one time. Okay, let's try to practice. If this looks wonky, I'm not gonna waste our time because it's already 9:16, we'll give it a try. That one video seemed to work a little bit better, right? All right, give me a second here. By next time, hi again. By next time, I should have this all squared away. I'm gonna close all my other windows. Boop, boop, boop. Any other seniors any other teachers surviving their first week and a half of school? I'm so tired. Can I just tell you that? I don't know about the rest of you. It's tiring. All right, let me look at my notes here and see what I wanted to point out. The first one I want to show you, and if you have not watched this team, I highly recommend just searching for them on YouTube. This is a now defunct all-star team from Florida. Their name is Cheer Factory. They have the most gorgeous tumbling I have ever seen. They're so flexible, the whole team. Do you see those back walkovers? Oh my God. I wish we saw back walkovers like that, right? They're doing back walkovers and forward rolls. If we ever saw a team like this and you did not give them a 10, that would be a serious conversation that I would have with you as a head judge. The other thing I want to point out with this, though, is that idea of how they are taught to tumble. So do you see how, I'm going to try to make this bigger. I don't know if that's going to be terrible or okay. Probably terrible. See how they start with their leg up when they start tumbling? Right here. So they all lift their leg up and then they go back, they do their tumbling and they land with their arms up by their heads and pause. Clearly, that is the way that they were taught how to do that skill. Whether you agree with that way or not, doesn't matter. They're all doing it. It all looks beautiful. That's the way they were taught. We can only comment on what we see, not the way that they were taught to do it. Does that make sense? Now, obviously, if everyone's throwing their head back in a tuck, that is improper technique. But them starting with their leg up in the air isn't bad technique. It's just a different way of doing it. All right. Their stunting flexibility is amazing too. They're like a level 2. I think this is their level 1 team, but they have a level 2 team as well. Definitely worth the watch if you like good cheerleading. All right, we're going to skip to, let's go to Chico Cheer here. Where is it? And again, I will give you the link to this MPSSCC judges playlist. It says unlisted right now, but I'll send you the link. Don't share it again with anybody. It's just for judges, but it'll have all these videos so you can watch it like for reals on your own computer instead of watching it through my computer, and that might help you better. All right, so this is another all-star team. Apparently I got in trouble for using our current team, so I tried not to. And these guys have 20 athletes. So if you look at your quantity chart, we are looking for either 10 or 15 of them to do a synchronized pass at the same time. Okay, so 10 for 50%, 15 for 75%. Right away at the very beginning, they're doing some transitional tumbling. They're going to get ready to do some running passes a little bit, or some standing passes that aren't synchronized. We're going to head straight to the synchronized part, but this might be a good one for you to practice just scripting in general. If you want to go back and kind of watch it on your own and just practice scripting. No, I was like, why isn't it going? Because I need to hit pause. Here we go. So they're getting ready to do their sync pass. Here's their beautiful jumps. All right, that was it. Did you get it? There are no rewatches live and in person. This is another one of those where I would probably count the ones that did not do it as opposed to the ones that did do it. I will play it one more time, but just know you don't get a redo when we're doing it live. Here it comes. Wasn't it nice that they did it twice, though? Now you get to count how many don't do it twice. In the interest of time, it's going to push right along. 7 of them do not do the back handspring. So 20 minus 7 is 13. So they do not have enough in this section for that 75%. So right now, they are in that 50% back handspring range, which is 6 to 7, I believe, if I'm right. Yes, 6 to 7. Again, you don't have to memorize that. They do another pass a little bit later, so you want to keep watching because maybe, even if they can't do standing tumbling, sometimes they can do running tumbling or vice versa. So they may be able to add some little peanuts in later. So here's another pass that's synchronized. Here's a little hint. Whenever they set up like this with like one group in the back and a bunch lined up like this, I'm immediately counting how many girls they have in that formation. Because I feel like something's coming, right? Even when they get into their jump formation, I'm going to count how many girls are jumping or how many girls are in that formation, because that'll give me a heads up already. So right now I can tell there are 5 girls back there doing, I think it's going to be a show and go or a toss or something. So I know that there are 15 girls lined up across the front. They're staggered in such a way that makes it seem like they're about to do tumbling. So now I really only have to watch and see, do they all do the pass, or are there some fakers in this group? One more time. I know it's jumpy. Did you guys catch the fakers? This is another instance where it may be helpful to split the floor. So if you're like, okay, head judge, you watch the right side, I'll watch the left side, or vice versa, and you only count or look for what's on your side, that kind of lessens the amount of eye strain you're trying to go for. So when I watched this the first time, I caught 2 fakers, but now that I'm watching it again, to be honest with you, I think there are 3 that don't actually finish that pass. So little Missy right here, she just walks backwards. She doesn't do a dang thing. One girl over here, one of these 3 in the back, don't do the back handspring. And then this little chick over here, she doesn't do the back handspring either. So watch that, see if you caught that too. See the 2 duckers? There's one here and one here. They just duck down at the end. So that is only 12. So they had 15 to start, minus 3 is 12. So they had some fakers. Does that mean that they automatically get the 5.5 because they had fakers in that group? So in this case, no, they do not get the they do not get that 0.5 because the first sequence they met the range correctly. Now I see there were some questions about for the second back handspring, they added some folks or didn't add folks or whatever. That's okay because I would count that as 2 separate passes, to be honest with you. Maybe that's just because I'm looking at this as an all-star judge too, and in level 2 you can't do a double back handspring, but because they have that pause in the middle, I wouldn't really count this as a connected skill. You guys, we can argue about, or not argue, but we can talk about that. But I would say they all did 1 back handspring, then they pause, and then they're all doing another back handspring again. So for me, that's 2 separate things. It's not like they did a double back handspring. It's like back handspring, pause, back handspring. If they were to connect them right together, like back handspring, and using that rebound, then yes, 100% I would count that as a single pass, and it would have to be the same. They couldn't have people drop off or come in. Now again, keep in mind, this is an all-star team, so they're not following our rubric necessarily. I was just trying to find an example. But because they had this pass in the beginning that was synchronized, even though they have fakers in the second pass, that's okay. They don't get that 0.5 below. So this is the 6 to 7 range because they have 13 at most. The most thing they do together is 13 back handsprings. So that's not enough for 15 for the 75%. So they're in that 6 to 7 range. Now they have this pass. They had those 2 back handsprings in the beginning. They have a bunch of cross passes later on. So I would definitely put them probably higher in that range, depending on what everyone else is throwing on this day. The only other one, let me do one more real quick. And then if we need more practice, you guys can let me know and I can do another video with just practices. Okay. No, that's not the one I want to use. Sorry. Hit it in a minute. Sorry. This will be the last thing. We're almost done. Thanks for hanging in. I know this is review for most of you. We did change the stunt and pyramid one, so definitely check in next week. Did I not save it? Oh, here it is. I just didn't go down for it. This is a rec team. Bless their little hearts. There are, hold on one second. 21 athletes on the floor. So just like 20, we're looking for 10 for 50% and 15 for 75%. Now this one's a little tricky, and I kind of picked this on purpose so we as head judges can kind of discuss this too. But the rule is they can do things in sync, in a ripple, as long as it's the same pass and as long as we can tell that it's different athletes, okay? So the reason I picked this video specifically is because of how they organize their kind of second tumbling pass here. So I'm just gonna let this play. So again, these little girls in the back, I'm going to count them as soon as I sit down to see what they're doing. They do aerials. They're going to do some cross passes here. Round off back tucks. I know it's a little jumpy. If you watch, and again, if you're scripting the whole thing, I want you to watch little girl in the red bloomers that comes up the middle, and then watch the two groups that cross right after she's finished. Pretend nothing else is going on in the back at this point. There's, oh crap, stupid video. Let me rewind it a little more. Aerial, whatever. This little girl is going to come right up the center, right here. Round off, back tuck. Then her little friends are going around behind her. Round off, back tuck. So I know it's hard to see in the video. The two groups that are crossing, they're doing round off back tucks. There are 9 of them doing that. But we had that little girl coming forward who did the round off back tuck. So it's the same skill, the same exact sequence from beginning to end, round off back tuck. She clearly doesn't repeat because I can see her red bloomers right in my face the whole time. So we can count her as part of that 10. It's kind of like a rippled pass. I would probably make a comment to the coach, like, why not just put her in those cross passes? Like, it seems like there's enough time for her to get there. It's not like she's involved in anything else at the same time. And that would make it even more clear that they have 10 doing those round off back tucks. That would just be a suggestion to the coach. But she can be counted because she's doing the same thing and she's not a recycler. Does that make sense? So we say rippled passes. Most of the time our coaches do big groups, so it's clear. But I just want to point out, in case we see something weird like this, where it's like one and then many, it's still okay, as long as they're doing the exact same thing. Now, if she did round off back handspring back tuck, and everyone else just did round off tucks, that would not be the same thing, and so she wouldn't count. But in this case, she can count, and so they have 10, and so they would be in that 8 to 9 range. If they didn't have, again, Sally Sue in the background doing that show and go. Okay, because she's back there, they're going to get the 7.5, but we'll pretend she's not there. Give them the benefit of the doubt. The only other thing I want to point out on this list is I put this big video down here at the bottom, the 2018. It's from Illinois High School Association. They follow NFHS rules as well, so they're comparative to our teams. They have a different rubric. But they're allowed to do the same skills. So this is their finals from their state competition last fall. They're small and medium. So it's 2.5 hours or 2 hours and 45 minutes long. But it's great if you want to just practice judging live and trying not to pause and, doing a couple teams in a row and getting that pace down. There are also smaller teams. There is the IHSA. They have large and extra large divisions too, which you can find on YouTube. I picked the small and medium to put on here because most of our teams are smaller, 20 and under. So it's easier to count, but that's kind of up to you. All right, I'm going to take one last peek for questions or comments, and then I think we are kind of done. Okay, good. So you guys are in agreement that it's a different sequence. Awesome. So yeah, definitely a pause between the two back handspring sections at the beginning. So we are going to count that as 2 separate passes. And then, yeah, because it wasn't connected directly. All right, this one was a little longer than I really expected. Probably next week, I'm hoping it's going to be a little shorter because we won't have to do that initial general rules kind of stuff. The changes to stunts and pyramids, I think, are going to make it easier for us to count and do things. Most of the requirements are kind of the same, just the way that we're going to count things is a little different. It's going to open it up for creativity. So hopefully that won't be as bad. But thank you guys so much for joining in. It's so good. I wish I was going to say it's so good to see you, but I guess you guys can see me and I can't really see you. Yeah, so if this time worked out great at 8 o'clock, hopefully that was a good time and to start. And other than that, then we are done. Yay, jumps and tumbling. Now we're all experts. Oh, there will eventually be like a little quiz or something. We're still kind of working that out. So Angie will email you that information as it becomes available or as she gets it. All right, I'm going to pause just for a little wait time just to make sure there's no other questions. You're welcome. I'm going to try to fix the video thing. Aaron, I swear. All right. All right. I think we're good. So again, if you think of any questions you have or any clarifications or even any like, hey, did you guys think about this kind of thing? Please email Angie. Again, her email is judges.maryland@gmail.com. And she'll either pass them along to us for consensus. We usually ask the head judges for consensus. It's not just one of us making a decision about how we call things. So she can pass it along or answer it if we already have an answer. When in doubt, definitely look at that clarification document. It has a ton of examples and explanations on it. If a coach comes to you to ask a question, either about the rubric or about the clarification document or about safety questions or anything, we're asking that you not answer them and that you send them to the Maryland mdcheerinquiry@gmail.com Gmail, and we'll put that in an email to you too. That way we have a record of what they're asking. So if many coaches have the same question, that's something that we can address overall, or if it's, we just want to make sure that they're getting correct information and consistent information as well. All right. Thanks, folks. I will see you next week. Thank you all so much for coming. Bye.